So here I'm going to choose a varied range of real objects and to create drawings and composition inspired by the work we've done so far. So there's different ways of working. So here I'm working with Viewfinder and trying to frame some of the objects in a composition I think is more interesting. So some are more abstract than others. So you can work that way and using your Viewfinder, frame them and show what you can see on my quick sketch in one of the boxes on here. So here I've decided to try some techniques as well on this one and add a little bit of tone using a technique we used when we looked at Henry Moore in and how he showed the tone and a 3D effect on his drawings. So I've decided to use some of this inspiration on there and some stripes in the background. He had in some of those skulls on here. So here for these potatoes, just same frame then focusing on showing the tone and texture. On this one here, I'm inspired a little bit of both really, Henry Moore and Leonardo da Vinci, because I'm trying to show it 3D, but I'm also putting some nice texture and tone and detail on there. For this one here, I've chosen a section of a skull. I'm working for photographs on there, so you can alternate working from photos and real life. So I'm doing a quick scribbly drawing here, more in the style of Damien Hirst on there and showing the kind of tone and composition on there really quickly. A different method to go about it is to use your models and sketch directly on your sketchbook page on here like I'm doing on there, and I'm showing a quick outline and a quick idea of tone and texture on there. Trying different ones and kind of drawing different parts of models on there. Then I'm decided how I can frame them from there. So I'm drawing some rectangles. Here I've decided I want a new character on there and drawing some ideas of compositions. I'm putting a little bit of watercolor to show how it might work in the background. Then I've taken a picture from one of my models and decided to create a monoprint from there. So I've placed my sketchbook directly on the ink on there and creating a monoprint on here. So here I'm mixing slightly kind of the outline on there, and here I've got my monoprint. So here I'm presenting all my ideas, my thumbnails, and my monoprint on here. So from there, I've decided to create a final piece that's inspired by some of those on here. I want these guys a little bit more diagonal on there. So that's my placement on the page. And I'm just redoing a squid sketch and just shaping the big shapes and then breaking it down slightly. And on here, starting putting some of the detail on there. Once I've got the outline and a little bit of the detail, I'm going to work with a white pencil using some of the wax resist that Henry Moore's used in some of these later drawings on there, and just putting the highlights in white with that wax pencil. Then I'm coming back with my pencil and giving it a little bit more contrast on here, where I'm starting to put a little bit of the shading to make it look 3D. As you can see, I'm working quite quickly, but just working on the light and shadows and where I can put a little bit of contrast to make this stand out a little bit more and give an impression of volume. So I'm also indicating the shadows on the background on of this drawing. So just carrying on with that. And I've decided to add some of the 3D lines as well that Henry Moore had on there. So mixing inspiration from the range of the sources we've got on there. So here I'm going to introduce the watercolours. We've used them a little bit for a watercolour wash before, and doing that I just wanted to put a little bit of colour in pencil. Here I've got a kind of a light green, almost yellow pencil. I'm adding some stripes and starting putting some of the kind of mid to highlights on there. Then with my watercolours I'm using muted tones like kind of grey browns on there and a little bit of ochre. And I'm trying to create a wash that's thin enough to show the light areas and just a little bit darker in the dark areas, and then putting some water to kind of smooth it out on there. So I'm building those kind of layers of watercolor and depth of tone on there. So going back in some areas to make sure I've got the high contrast on here, inspired by Henry Moore wax resist drawings. When it's dry, I'm just coming back over the top of a pen and putting the last finishing touches, kind of blending a little bit of contrast until I have what I think is my completed drawing, making the lines stand out a little bit more again. And that's it. Once I've done that, I'm just going to add it to my sketchbook on here at the back, or to the side if you've got some room on there. Then I'm just going back on there and putting a little bit of annotation, how focused on tone, contrast, abstract drawing where I use scribbly textures, and the kind of drawings I like the most on there.